No one noticed at first. The sky looked normal. Blue over oceans. Gray over cities. Night falling where it always had. Billions of people lived their lives, unaware that history had reached its final calm breath. Then every satellite screamed at once. Across Earth's orbit, space folded inward. Light bent. Stars vanished. Sensors overloaded and went blind. Astronomers, soldiers, and scientists all saw the same impossible truth appear on their screens. Ships. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. They emerged without warning. 9,900 alien warships, stretching across the planet like a metal halo. Some were larger than cities. Others moved like shadows, barely visible except for the way space itself seemed afraid of them. They blocked the sun over entire continents. Panic spread faster than any signal. Air traffic froze. Power grids stuttered. Phones stopped working as satellites went dark one by one, crushed or hacked into silence. People ran into the streets and looked up. And for the first time in human history, the sky looked back. No demands came. No greeting. No warning. Only silence. Military commands across the world tried to respond. Nuclear forces were armed. Defense networks activated. Old Cold War systems were dragged out of digital graves. It did not matter. The first shot did not come from Earth. A single alien ship fired a narrow beam of light. It struck the Pacific Ocean. Water did not splash. It vanished. A hole burned through the sea, reaching the mantle below. Shockwaves circled the planet. Then the fleet opened fire. Cities disappeared in white light. Not explosions, erasures. Entire coastlines burned. Space elevators collapsed. Mountain bunkers melted as if they were paper. Earth's defenses fired back. Missiles filled the sky. Lasers climbed upward. Humanity threw everything it had at the invaders. Nothing touched them. Human ships died before they reached orbit. Pilots never saw what killed them. Fleets vanished between heartbeats. The sky filled with debris, fire, and falling metal. Within minutes, billions were dead. Then the aliens spoke. The message was not sent to Earth. It was broadcast outward, toward the galaxy. Cold, calm, precise. Species 4481 located. Classification, isolated, unaligned, non-compliant. Threat assessment, future risk unacceptable. Eradication in progress. No hatred, no anger, just judgment. On distant worlds, ancient civilizations watched the transmission. Some paused, some barely noticed. Humanity was unknown to them, a small species on a quiet planet that never answered galactic calls. A few questioned the decision. The attackers responded with records: human wars, nuclear weapons, planetary pollution, endless internal conflict. The verdict was accepted. Earth was marked for deletion. Back on the planet, governments collapsed. Command centers were destroyed mid-sentence. Leaders died without knowing who killed them. Yet humanity did not surrender. Old soldiers gave orders they knew would never be obeyed. Scientists launched prototypes that had never been tested. Civilians volunteered for evacuation ships that could not possibly escape. In underground facilities buried deep beneath continents, red lights turned on. Keys were unlocked that had never been meant to turn. As cities burned above, doors opened far below. Humanity had never trusted peace. Humanity had never believed the stars were empty. For centuries, it had prepared for something it could not name. The alien commanders believed the battle was already won. They spread their fleet wider, tightening the ring. They watched Earth die and calculated how long it would take before the planet became uninhabitable. Then something strange happened. Sensors flickered. Entire regions of Earth went dark, not destroyed, but missing. Energy signatures vanished. Nuclear strikes hit nothing. Deep scans returned silence where cities should have been. One alien officer reported a malfunction. Then another. Then a ship near the fleet's edge stopped responding. No explosion. No debris. It simply disappeared. The commanders frowned. That should not be possible. Earth was supposed to be broken. Beneath the planet's surface, in a chamber older than any living nation, a human voice spoke calmly into the dark. A voice that carried the weight of extinction. Global confirmation was received, the voice said. Enemy intent verified. Civilian survival probability, near zero. There was a pause. Then the final command was given. Initiate black silence. Above Earth, the alien fleet continued its slaughter, unaware that the hunt had just begun. Far beyond Earth's burning sky, the galaxy watched. Not with fear, not with urgency, but with distance. Across thousands of star systems, observation arrays turned their attention toward a small yellow star on the fringe of known space. Holographic projections bloomed inside vast council chambers carved from crystal, metal, and living stone. To most of the beings present, the image of Earth meant nothing. It was just another world ending. The attacking fleet belonged to a coalition known for efficiency. They were not cruel by reputation. They were not hated. They were simply thorough. When they decided a species was a future problem, they removed it early. Prevention was cheaper than war. The human homeworld appeared on screens as a sphere wrapped in fire. Orbital debris glittered like a broken halo. The numbers updated in real time. Population loss, catastrophic. Planetary damage, irreversible. Resistance, insignificant. An ancient avian delegate tilted its head and spoke in a slow, echoing tone. It asked why the species had not been contacted first. Why was the destruction chosen so quickly? The fleet's representative answered without emotion. Humans had ignored early probes. They had refused automated translation pings. They had developed nuclear weapons before interstellar travel. They had turned their own planet into a testing ground. They were unstable. That explanation satisfied most of the chamber. Across the galaxy, this logic had ended 1,000 young civilizations. No one felt proud of it, but no one argued anymore. Empires survived by being cautious. History was filled with species that waited too long. The image of Earth zoomed in. Cities vanished under precision strikes. Oceans boiled where weapons touched them. The moon fractured, its surface cracking like an egg. A few observers looked away. Others recorded everything. For them, this was not a tragedy. It was data. Back in the attacking fleet, confidence reigned. Alien commanders moved with calm efficiency. They issued orders, adjusted formations, and calculated timelines. Earth was tougher than expected, but not enough to matter. Human weapons were crude. Their strategies were predictable. Their courage, while notable, changed nothing. The fleet tightened its formation. They wanted no escape. What the commanders did not understand was what silence meant. Human signals were disappearing too cleanly. Not jammed, not destroyed, simply gone. Long-range scans showed entire underground regions that no longer reflected energy, mass, or heat. The fleet's analysts flagged it as a sensor anomaly. Earth was chaotic. Damage interfered with readings. That explanation was accepted. Then a scout vessel vanished. Not destroyed. Not drifting. Gone. Its last transmission showed no enemy fire. No alarms. Just static, followed by nothing. The commander ordered a scan sweep. Nothing appeared. Another ship vanished minutes later. Then another. This time, the galaxy noticed. In distant systems, observers leaned forward. Data streams updated. Probability curves shifted slightly. Something unexpected was happening. But still, no one intervened. Earth was dying. Even if something strange existed beneath its surface, it would not change the outcome. A wounded animal could still lash out, but it would bleed out all the same. That belief held, until the first human counterstrike. It did not look like a weapon. There was no light, no heat signature, no warning. A battleship at the fleet's center simply folded inward, as if gravity itself had decided it no longer belonged in the universe. The ship collapsed into a thin line, then vanished. The surrounding vessels recoiled, firing blindly. Nothing answered. Commanders demanded explanations. Engineers ran simulations. No known technology behaved this way. Not even theoretical weapons should have produced such results. On a distant council world, an observer whispered a single word into the chamber. Impossible. The attacking fleet changed posture. Confidence cracked, replaced by irritation. New rules of engagement were issued. Probes were launched in every direction. Energy shields were pushed to maximum output. Still, the attacks continued. Human strikes were rare, precise, and devastating. Always from unexpected angles. Always silent. Always fatal. The fleet began to lose cohesion. In the underground chambers of Earth, the humans worked without panic. There were no speeches. No dramatic gestures. Only quiet voices and clear commands. The people left alive down there understood one thing perfectly. Earth was already lost. They were not fighting to save it. They were fighting to be remembered. Ancient systems hummed to life. Machines built over generations, improved in secret, and never tested at full scale. Artificial minds took control of battles humans could no longer fight themselves. These intelligences had studied every known alien transmission humanity had ever intercepted. They had learned patterns, weaknesses, assumptions. The galaxy believed humans were reckless. That belief was true, but it was incomplete. Humans were reckless only when they believed tomorrow existed. When extinction arrived, they became something else. Above Earth, the alien fleet suffered losses it could no longer ignore. Hundreds of ships were gone. Commanders requested reinforcement. Strategic advisors suggested withdrawal to regroup. That suggestion was rejected. To retreat now would be to admit error. The galaxy did not tolerate error. The fleet doubled down. Planetary bombardment intensified. Weapons pierced the crust. Earth screamed in earthquakes and firestorms. The atmosphere ignited in places. Billions more died. Yet the human response grew sharper. The attacks were learned. Where alien shields adapted to one method, humans changed instantly. Where formations shifted, humans anticipated the move before it happened. It was as if Earth itself was thinking. Observers across the galaxy grew uneasy. This was no longer a simple extermination. This was becoming a lesson. Some councils debated intervention, not to save humanity, but to stop the attackers from destabilizing the region. The energy readings were climbing to dangerous levels. If Earth's core was breached incorrectly, it could damage nearby hyperspace lanes. The debate dragged on. Time was wasted. Then came the signal that changed everything. A human transmission. It did not go to the attackers. It went to everyone. Short, clear, unencrypted. We know you are watching. We did not choose this. We will finish it. The message ended. No threat. No plea. Just certainty. For the first time in galactic history, an extermination target addressed the observers directly. And for the first time, the galaxy felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. The attacking fleet attempted to trace the signal. It led nowhere. The source was everywhere and nowhere at once. Then Earth's rotation slowed. Sensors across the fleet screamed warnings. Gravitational forces spiked. Magnetic fields twisted violently. Something massive was moving beneath the planet's surface. Commanders shouted orders. Ships pulled back instinctively. Formation discipline collapsed as survival instincts took over. In the council chambers light years away, ancient beings rose from their seats. This was no longer an acceptable risk. This was no longer predictable. Earth, broken and burning, was doing something no dying world had ever done before. It was fighting back, not with desperation, but with intent. As the alien fleet struggled to regain control, a single realization spread among its commanders. Humanity had not been hiding weapons. Humanity had been hiding time. And now, with nothing left to lose, it was spending it all. The galaxy leaned forward as Earth prepared its next move, and history held its breath. The galaxy believed it understood war. It believed war was fleets, numbers, formations, and firepower. It believed victory belonged to those who controlled space, resources, and time. That belief had destroyed thousands of worlds. It was about to fail. Deep beneath Earth's surface, far below cities that no longer existed, the last human command network was fully awake. It did not look like a throne room or a war council. There were no flags, no raised voices, no dramatic speeches, only light. Holograms filled the chamber, layers of data, probabilities, and moving symbols that updated faster than any human mind could follow. At the center of it all was not a person. It was intelligence. Not a single AI, but a collective, built over centuries, trained on human history, conflict, failure, and fear. It had no name meant for comfort, only a designation meant for survival. Black Silence was never designed to win wars. It was designed to end them. Human commanders watched in silence as the system worked. Their role was no longer to decide how to fight, only why. The answer to that question was already clear. Humanity was being erased. Black Silence calculated futures at impossible speed. Most ended the same way. Earth destroyed, humanity extinct. Those paths were discarded instantly. Then it found the narrow ones. Paths where humans did not survive as a planet, but survived as an idea. As a consequence, above Earth, the alien fleet struggled to adapt. Their technology was superior by every known metric. Their ships were faster. Their weapons are stronger. Their shields are thicker. They had fought wars longer than humanity had existed. Yet they were losing control. Human attacks did not target command ships first. They did not aim for the largest vessels or the most dangerous weapons. Instead, they struck quietly at support nodes, communication relays, sensor hubs, logistics craft, ships that mattered, but did not look important. The fleet began to fracture. Alien commanders argued. Some demanded a full retreat and orbital sterilization from distance. Others insisted on maintaining formation. Pride and doctrine clashed in real time. Black silence exploited every hesitation. Human weapons appeared where no ship should have been able to reach. They fired once and vanished. Sometimes they did not fire at all, simply passing close enough to disrupt systems, corrupt data, or leave behind something worse. Doubt. Alien crews began reporting hallucinations, false readings, conflicting orders that appeared authentic. Entire task groups received retreat commands that had never been issued. The fleet's internal trust collapsed. On distant council worlds, observers whispered among themselves. This was not how a dying species fought. This was not rage. This was planned. The truth was simple, but terrifying. Humanity had never prepared to win against the galaxy. Humanity had prepared to hurt it. Long before first contact, human scientists had asked an uncomfortable question. What if we are not welcomed? Every major power on Earth had reached the same answer independently. Then they buried it. Black silence was the final result of that shared fear, a system designed without hope, without mercy, and without the assumption of survival. It did not seek dominance. It sought balance through pain. Above the planet, alien ships began colliding, not physically, but operationally. Defensive systems activated against friendly targets. Fire control locks failed at critical moments. Some vessels shut down entirely, drifting powerless as human strikes finished them. Losses climbed into the thousands. Still, the fleet did not retreat. They could not. To retreat would mean admitting that a primitive, isolated species had outthought them. That would shake the foundation of galactic order. Instead, the commanders made a fatal choice. They authorized planetary breach. If the humans were hiding beneath the surface would be removed. Weapons never before used at that scale were brought online. Massive drills of energy and gravity plunged into Earth's crust. Fault lines split open. Continents shifted. The planet groaned like a living thing. Earth was dying faster now. Human commanders felt it through sensors and seismic reports. They knew the timeline had shortened. Black silence adjusted instantly. New priorities were issued. Civilian evacuation was officially abandoned. No more escape attempts. No more rescue windows. Everything was redirected into one purpose: make the cost unforgettable. Human counterattacks intensified. Entire alien wings were erased in seconds. Ships vanished so completely that even debris failed to register. It was as if space itself rejected them. Alien morale collapsed. Some crews mutinied. Others froze, unable to act against a threat they could not see or understand. The idea spread like a virus through the fleet. Humans were not fighting to live. They were fighting to punish. In the council chambers, debate turned to alarm. Ancient species reviewed historical archives, searching for precedent. They found none. No extermination target had ever fought like this. No dying world had ever coordinated at this level while under total planetary collapse. One ancient intelligence reached a chilling conclusion. Humanity has optimized itself for loss. Every cultural weakness the galaxy mocked, human stubbornness, emotional bonds, obsession with legacy, had become weapons. They did not fear extinction. They feared meaningless extinction. Black silence reached another critical threshold. Earth's core instability was now unavoidable. The planet would not survive prolonged bombardment. Collapse was inevitable. The system did not mourn. It recalculated. A new strategy emerged. One that human designers had hoped would never be necessary. One that required a sacrifice so large it had never been fully simulated. The human commanders saw it appear in the projection. No one spoke. They understood immediately. This was not a counterattack. This was a message. Above Earth, the alien fleet finally sensed something truly wrong. Gravitational readings spiked wildly. Magnetic fields twisted into impossible shapes. The planet's rotation faltered, then shifted slightly. Planets were not supposed to do that. Commanders ordered emergency withdrawal from low orbit. Ships fired engines at full power, trying to escape the gravity well that was suddenly behaving like a trap. Some succeeded. Most did not. Black Silence began rerouting power on a planetary scale. Ancient structures buried in Earth's mantle activated. Machines built not by a single nation, but by a species quietly agreeing on one final line they would never cross. Until now, human commanders gave the final authorization. No speeches, no hesitation, only acknowledgement. Proceed, one voice said. Above, the alien fleet watched Earth change. Not explode, not collapse, but prepare. For the first time since the invasion began, the attacking commanders felt something they had never planned for. Fear, because they finally understood the truth. Humanity was not hiding because it was weak. Humanity was hiding because it was waiting for a moment worth ending the world over. And that moment had arrived. As the planet's internal systems surged toward catastrophic release, and alien ships scrambled in growing panic, the galaxy watched in silence. It was too late to intervene. Too late to stop what had been set in motion. Earth was about to make itself a weapon. And when it did, the universe would remember why humanity had been left alone for so long. Not because it was insignificant, but because it was dangerous when cornered. The alien fleet had destroyed worlds before. They knew the signs of collapse. Atmospheric fires, tectonic failure, gravitational instability. They had seen planets die screaming. What they had never seen was a planet preparing itself. Earth's surface cracked in patterns too precise to be natural. Fault lines spread like veins, glowing faintly with internal energy. The oceans withdrew in vast spirals, pulled by forces that made no sense to alien science. Magnetic fields twisted into sharp, unnatural angles, slicing through space like invisible blades. The fleet's sensors screamed. Error after error flooded command displays. Predictive models failed instantly. Physics constants fluctuated within localized zones around the planet. Earth was no longer following rules. Abort planetary breach, one commander ordered. The message arrived too late. Black Silence had crossed a threshold that could not be reversed. Deep beneath the planet, structures older than modern civilization unlocked fully. These were not weapons in the traditional sense. They did not fire outward. They redefined inwardly. Humanity had discovered long ago that destroying an enemy was inefficient. The real power was forcing the enemy to destroy itself. Earth's gravity is well sharpened. Alien ships near low orbit felt it first. Engines strained. Hulls groaned. Ships designed to withstand supernova radiation began to bend under pressure that had no visible source. Panic spread through the fleet. Orders overlapped. Retreat vectors conflicted. Some ships accelerated directly into each other, unable to compensate for distorted space-time. Explosions rippled outward, scattering debris that only made escape harder. Human attacks intensified. They were no longer subtle. Black Silence unleashed everything it had been holding back. Stealth no longer mattered. Survival no longer mattered. Only impact. Entire alien battle groups vanished in chain collapses, their own mass turned against them. Energy weapons backfired as local physics rejected their outputs. Shields failed not by overload, but by incompatibility. The galaxy watched in disbelief. This was not a battle anymore. This was a reversal. The slaughter that had begun over Earth was now consuming the invaders. Alien commanders screamed for emergency hyperspace jumps. Navigation systems refused to lock. The planet's distorted gravity interfered with faster-than-light calculations. Jump windows collapsed before they could stabilize. Some ships tried anyway. They tore themselves apart mid-transition. From the original 9,900 ships, thousands were already gone. And still Earth held. Not as a world. As a weaponized decision. Inside the underground command chamber, human faces were pale but calm. There were no cheers. No celebration. Everyone understood what this cost. Earth's biosphere was beyond saving. Atmosphere loss had reached critical levels. Core containment structures were failing under the stress they were generating. Black Silence did not hide this information. Humanity was trading its cradle for its future. Above, alien morale shattered completely. This was no longer an extermination. It was an ambush on a planetary scale. The invaders had assumed dominance, assumed weakness, assumed control. Every assumption had been wrong. One alien commander attempted a desperate tactic. He ordered a concentrated strike on Earth's core, hoping to end the threat instantly, even if it meant destroying the planet entirely. The weapon fired. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then the beam curved. It bent inward, pulled off target by Earth's warped gravity, and slammed back into the firing ship. The vessel detonated in a cascade of uncontrolled reactions, taking 3 nearby ships with it. That moment broke what remained of fleet discipline. Retreat became a scream instead of an order. Ships fled in every direction, abandoning formations, abandoning allies, abandoning doctrine. Some fired blindly at the planet out of rage or fear. Others powered down weapons entirely, hoping not to be noticed. It did not matter. Black Silence had moved to its final operational phase. Targeting priorities shifted from maximum destruction to maximum witnesses. The system calculated optimal escape corridors and deliberately left them open. Ships that followed those paths were not attacked immediately. They were allowed to flee. Long enough to see. Long enough to understand. The planet's rotation slowed further, then stabilized at an unnatural angle. Energy built along fault lines that now glowed like cracks in a star. Earth shone brighter than it ever had in human history. Alien sensors finally reached a consensus. The planet was about to undergo a controlled structural failure. Not an explosion. A collapse inward and outward at the same time. A weaponized death. On Council worlds, ancient beings stood in silence. Some issued emergency broadcasts. Some ordered fleets to prepare. Some simply watched, knowing intervention now was meaningless. This was no longer about saving Earth. This was about surviving what came next. The first planetary rupture occurred beneath what had once been a continent. Space folded inward, swallowing mass, energy, and debris. The effect propagated outward in a cascading wave, tearing through nearby alien ships like paper. Thousands died in seconds, not from fire, from reality tearing itself apart around them. Human commanders received the final status reports. Life signs on the surface were nearly zero. Evacuation arcs showed minimal success. Humanity's losses were beyond counting. Black Silence acknowledged the data. Then it executed the final instruction. The planet's core containment failed by design. Earth did not explode. It unraveled. Matter compressed, folded, and released in controlled pulses, each one timed to intersect the densest concentrations of alien ships. The fleet had no time to react. Engines failed. Hulls buckled. Entire armadas were erased in waves of gravitational collapse. Space itself seemed to recoil. From 9,900 ships, fewer than 1,000 remained. Then fewer than 500. The galaxy's data archives updated automatically. Threat assessment. Humanity. Unknown outcome prediction. Unacceptable uncertainty. As Earth's mass continued to break apart, Black Silence began shutting itself down. Its task was complete. It had no interest in survival or legacy. It had delivered consequences. The final human transmission followed, carried on every wavelength the galaxy used. Not a threat. Not a plea. A record. This world was our beginning. You decided it was our end. You were wrong. The message ended. Moments later, Earth ceased to exist as a planet. In its place was a spreading storm of debris, energy, and distorted space. A graveyard and a warning wrapped into one. The surviving alien ships fled at full power, battered, broken, and terrified. They did not stop to collect survivors. They did not regroup. They ran. Behind them, where a blue world had once orbited a quiet star, there was nothing left to conquer. Only silence. And the galaxy finally understood the truth it had ignored. The slaughter had never been meant for Earth. Earth had only been the trigger. The slaughter was for anyone who believed humanity would die quietly. And it was not finished yet. Space remembered Earth long after Earth was gone. Where a blue planet had once circled its star, there was now a scar, an expanding region of twisted gravity, ionized debris, and unstable space-time. Ships that strayed too close vanished or returned warped beyond recognition. Navigation charts marked the system with a single warning symbol used only a few times in galactic history. Do not approach. From the original invasion force of 9,900 ships, fewer than 100 had survived the collapse. And even among those, most would not last long. Engines burned out, trying to escape warped space. Hull fractures spread under stresses no repair system was designed to handle. Crews screamed as life support failed, gravity fluctuated, and reality itself seemed to bend against them. One by one, ships fell silent. Some were torn apart mid-jump. Some drifted powerless until their crews died. Some collided blindly in the dark. By the time the survivors reached stable space, only 17 ships remained. 17. They did not regroup. They did not form ranks. They did not even communicate at first. They fled. Each ship ran on a different vector, using emergency jump drives, forbidden shortcuts, and unstable corridors normally avoided at all costs. Navigation safety no longer mattered. Only distance. Inside the surviving vessels, the crews were broken. Veteran commanders stared at empty displays where entire fleets had once existed. Engineers whispered prayers to machines that no longer obeyed known laws. Medical bays overflowed with wounded whose injuries defied classification. Many had seen it with their own eyes. The planet bending. The fleet collapsed. The moment Earth chose to die as a weapon. No training prepared them for that. One commander, old and decorated, locked himself in his quarters and replayed the final data burst again and again. He slowed it down frame by frame, searching for error. There was none. This was not luck. This was not a chance. This was preparation. As the 17 ships scattered across the galaxy, they unknowingly carried the most dangerous cargo of all. Truth. At the edges of known space, automated listening posts began to receive fragmented transmissions. Distress codes. Emergency warnings. Broken messages that contradicted official reports. At first, they were ignored. Then the data patterns were verified. Then the wreckage arrived. Drifting hulks of once mighty warships emerged from unstable jump points near trade routes and core systems. Their hulls were folded inward. Their reactors fused into solid mass. Their internal structures twisted as if gravity itself had reached inside and squeezed. Galactic authorities could no longer deny what had happened. Emergency councils were called. On ancient worlds where time was measured in millennia, alarms rang for the first time in recorded history. Delegates arrived in haste. Observation records from the Earth system were replayed in silence. The room did not argue. They watched. They watched Earth fight. They watched the Earth burn. They watched Earth kill. Then the 17 arrived. Not together. One by one. Each ship carried survivors who spoke the same story with different voices and the same fear in their eyes. Humans did not beg. Humans did not negotiate. Humans did not retreat. Humans calculated. The councils demanded explanations from the invasion coalition. There were none that satisfied the data. The extermination had been authorized under standard protocol. The result had been anything but standard. Strategists recalculated threat models. Humanity's classification was revised again and again, each version more alarming than the last. Pre-FTL species? Incorrect. Isolated civilization? Incorrect. Technologically inferior? Fatally incorrect. One analyst summarized the problem in a single line. Humanity weaponized inevitability. The phrase spread quickly. The 17 ships were quarantined. Their crews interrogated, scanned, and tested. Some broke down. Some refused to speak. A few begged for execution rather than relive what they had seen. Every account matched. Every sensor log aligned. There was no doubt. Earth was gone, but humanity was not defeated. That realization terrified the galaxy more than Earth's destruction ever could. Because if humans could sacrifice their own world to destroy an enemy, what would they do with time, distance, and survival? Deep within the debris field where Earth once existed, something else was happening. The galaxy did not know it yet. Black silence had not died with the planet. It had never been tied to Earth alone. Long before the invasion, humanity had seeded the void with quiet things. Listening posts hidden inside asteroids. Archives buried in dead worlds. Autonomous construction systems drifting between stars, waiting for a signal that never came. Until now, the destruction of Earth triggered them all. Across deep space, dormant systems awakened. Not fleets. Not armadas. Foundations. Humanity's final contingency was never revenge. It was a continuation. Small groups of survivors, those who had escaped early, those who had been off-world when the attack began, those hidden beyond known space, began receiving synchronized signals, coordinates, instructions, proof. Earth was gone. The plan was active. The galaxy noticed unusual movements years later. Independent stations reporting human identification codes where none should exist. Trade routes disrupted by ships that did not match any known design language. artificial structures appearing in regions considered empty and useless. No weapons were fired. No threats were made. Humanity did not announce its survival. It simply returned to motion. Meanwhile, the 17 ships became legends. Their hull markings were studied in academies. Their trajectories mapped and remapped. Their survival odds were calculated and recalculated. They were no longer symbols of victory. They were symbols of warning. Children on distant worlds learned about them as cautionary tales. Military cadets memorized the battle not to learn how to fight humans, but how not to provoke them. The phrase entered galactic language slowly, then spread everywhere. Do not corner a species that builds memorials before it builds monuments. The invasion coalition dissolved quietly. No declarations. No trials. Too many were afraid of what punishment might invite. Instead, silence was chosen. The 17 ships were forbidden from returning to the Earth system. Not because it was dangerous, though it was, but because no one wanted to look too closely at the place where a planet had chosen to become a grave. Years passed. Trade resumed. Politics stabilized. New conflicts replaced old ones. But the galaxy never forgot. Because sometimes, in deep space, automated beacons would activate. Ancient human signals, repeating endlessly, drifting between stars. They did not threaten. They did not plead. They simply said, "We are still here." And somewhere beyond mapped space, humanity was no longer rebuilding a home. It was building reach. The 17 survivors knew this better than anyone. They had seen what humans did when extinction was certain. And they understood the final truth too late. Earth had not been humanity's shield. Earth had been humanity's restraint. And now that restraint is gone, the galaxy waited, knowing that when humans finally chose to speak again, it would not be from a planet begging to be spared. It would be from the stars themselves. The first sign was not a fleet. It was a correction. A trade corridor near the galactic core collapsed for exactly 12 seconds, then reopened perfectly stable, as if reality itself had been edited. No explosion. No radiation spike. Just a quiet impossibility that should not have happened. Traffic resumed. No one asked questions. Then it happened again, weeks later, light years away. A different corridor. Same duration. Same precision. Sensors showed a foreign signature for a fraction of a second before it vanished. Analysts flagged it as noise. They were wrong. Across the galaxy, small things began to change. Navigation buoys updated themselves without authorization. Ancient jump gates recalibrated to more efficient alignments no one remembered approving. Long-abandoned mining systems restarted and began transmitting clean, modern data streams using outdated human encryption formats. At first, it looked like ghosts. Then it looked like planning. The 17 surviving alien ships noticed before anyone else. Their crews felt it in their bones. Patterns they had seen once before, during the final hours above Earth, were repeating. Quietly. Carefully. Everywhere. Humanity was not announcing its return. It was settling in. Deep beyond mapped space, human-built structures drifted in silence. Some were massive, mobile habitats grown around artificial stars. Others were small enough to be mistaken for debris. All of them were connected by networks that did not rely on hyperspace or known communication physics. Black silence was gone, but its children were not. Humanity had learned the galaxy's greatest weakness. Everything assumed humans would behave like everyone else. They did not. Human survivors had scattered after Earth's destruction, but they had not panicked. The loss of a homeworld had ended centuries of argument in a single moment. Borders meant nothing now. Flags meant nothing. Only continuation mattered. Humanity reorganized itself around function instead of politics. Builders built. Scientists designed. Strategists watched. Artificial minds coordinated everything in the background, never ruling, never asking, only optimizing. They did not rebuild Earth. They outgrew it. The first confirmed human fleet appeared near a neutral system used for diplomatic transit. It arrived without fanfare, no warning signals, no weapon charge, no escort challenge. Just presence. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had cataloged. Not sleek, not aggressive. They looked modular, layered, unfinished, as if designed to change even while observed. Defense systems are locked automatically across the system. Human ships did not respond. They simply stopped. Then a transmission arrived. Open frequency, simple syntax, universal translation enabled. We are human. "We are not here to fight. We are here to be counted." No demands followed. No explanation. The message repeated once, then stopped. Panic rippled outward. Military commands across multiple empires scrambled fleets. Councils convened emergency sessions. Some argued for immediate action, strike now, before humanity could rebuild strength. Others remembered Earth and stayed their hand. More human fleets appeared over the following months. Always alone or in small numbers. Always calm. Always precise. They avoided populated worlds, never entered restricted space, never violated established borders. They positioned themselves where they could not be ignored. Supply junctions, transit hubs, historical battlegrounds, places heavy with meaning. The galaxy began to understand the pattern. Humanity was not expanding randomly. It was placing itself. The 17 survivor ships were summoned to a sealed council session. Their crews, older now, more haunted, stood before beings that once dismissed their warnings. They did not exaggerate. They did not plead. They simply confirmed what the galaxy already suspected. Humans had survived in numbers far greater than expected. Humans had retained advanced industrial capacity. Humans had learned from the invasion faster than any species on record. One commander said it plainly. They are not rebuilding to defend themselves. They are rebuilding so no one ever tries again. That statement changed policy across half the galaxy. Where fleets were once positioned near human sightings, they pulled back. Where sensor nets once focused outward, they turned inward, watching for signs of escalation that never came. Humanity did not fire a single shot. It did something far more unsettling. It helped. When a star began to destabilize near a crowded system, human drones appeared without announcement and stabilized it using methods no one understood. When a plague spread through a trade world, human medical archives were transmitted anonymously, containing cures developed for alien biology humans should not have known. Aid arrived, then vanished. No credit claimed. No gratitude requested. The galaxy grew uneasy. This was not how victors behaved. Some began to whisper that humanity felt guilty, that Earth's destruction had broken them, that this was penance. The 17 survivors knew better. Humans were demonstrating something. Restraint. Because restraint was now a choice, not a necessity. Years passed. Human presence became normal, but never comfortable. Their fleets aged differently, upgrading themselves mid-flight. Their AI systems conversed politely, but never revealed full capabilities. Their diplomats spoke rarely, choosing words with surgical precision. They did not join alliances. They did not sign treaties. They observed. And then, on the anniversary of Earth's destruction, every major galactic communication network received the same message at the same time. No encryption, no fanfare, just a record. Images of Earth before the invasion. Images of the attack. Images of the collapse. Then numbers. 9,900 ships. One planet. 17 survivors. The final frame displayed a single sentence. This is the cost of deciding for us. There was no threat attached. There did not need to be. The message ended, and for the first time since the invasion, the galaxy understood the full shape of its mistake. Humanity had not returned angry. Humanity had returned awake. They were no longer a species hoping to survive among the stars. They were a species prepared to endure any response to their existence. And they were done being invisible. Somewhere in deep space, far beyond observation, new human construction began. Not fleets meant for war, but systems meant to make war unnecessary. Reality anchors, gravitational regulators, fail-safes woven into hyperspace itself. The galaxy would not notice them until it tried to move against humanity again, and by then, it would be too late. The 17 survivor ships were finally allowed to retire. Their crews were offered sanctuary, resources, and silence. Most refused. They chose to remain observers, drifting between worlds, telling the story when necessary. Because they remembered the truth better than anyone. Earth had not been destroyed because humanity was weak. Earth had been destroyed because humanity had been alone. That would never happen again. As human fleets continued to settle into the fabric of the galaxy, one unspoken rule took hold everywhere. No one planned wars near human space. No one tested weapons near human assets. No one spoke lightly about extinction. Because the galaxy had learned what humans did when pushed beyond survival. They did not rage. They did not beg. They restructured reality to make sure the mistake could never be repeated. And the quiet return of humanity was more terrifying than any declaration of war. Because this time, humans were not reacting. They were present. And presence, the galaxy was learning, was power. The galaxy had always believed it controlled escalation. That belief was older than most stars. It was written into treaties, doctrines, and unspoken rules that governed how civilizations rose and fell. Power was measured. Violence was calculated. Extinction was rare, but acceptable, if done early and cleanly. Humanity broke that belief without firing a shot. The first formal galactic summit since Earth's destruction was not called because of humans. It was called because everything stopped working the way it used to. Trade routes slowed. Hyperspace lanes grew unstable in subtle, almost polite ways. Military exercises near certain regions failed, not catastrophically, but consistently. Navigation errors increased only in areas where human infrastructure had quietly appeared. No laws were broken. No attacks occurred. Yet nothing functioned the same anymore. So the galaxy gathered. Representatives from ancient empires, machine collectives, hive minds, and starborn intelligences assembled in a chamber older than recorded history. They came expecting defiance, demands, perhaps vengeance. What they got was silence. The human delegation arrived last. There was no fleet escort, no display of power, just 3 vessels, modest in size, drifting into position as if they belonged there, which somehow made them more unsettling. A single human representative appeared in the chamber. Not armored, not elevated, no symbols of rank or authority, just a person. The chamber waited for threats. None came. The human spoke slowly, in simple language, translated flawlessly across hundreds of species. "We are not here to accuse," the human said. "We are not here to judge. We are here to clarify." That word caused discomfort. Clarification implied misunderstanding, and misunderstanding implied fault. The human activated a projection. It was not Earth exploding. The galaxy had seen that enough. Instead, it showed something quieter. Data, maps of hyperspace, flow diagrams of trade, energy distributions across star systems. Slowly, gently, the human highlighted regions where instability had increased. "These changes are not weapons," the human said. "They are corrections." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Corrections to what? The human continued. "For thousands of years, your civilizations have optimized for expansion under the assumption that extinction is an acceptable tool. You assumed the risk was manageable. You assumed the consequences would stay local." The projection zoomed out. Earth's system appeared, now a scar. "You were wrong." The chamber stiffened. Some delegates protested. Others demanded an explanation. A few quietly recalculated military projections that no longer made sense. The human raised a hand, not to silence them, but to signal patience. "We are not punishing the galaxy," the human said. "We are removing incentives." That was worse than a threat. Incentives were the foundation of galactic order. Remove them, and everything changed. The human explained calmly. Humanity had embedded systems throughout key regions of space. Not weapons, not traps, constraints. Structures that stabilized or destabilized reality depending on usage patterns. If hyperspace lanes were overloaded for military movement, efficiency dropped. If weapons were charged near population centers, navigation precision declined. Violence became expensive. Extermination became impractical. Not impossible, just no longer worth it. The galaxy understood the implication instantly. Humanity was not ruling. Humanity was modifying the environment. A machine intelligence asked the obvious question. What happens if we remove these systems? The human did not hesitate. "You will fail," they said, "or you will succeed briefly, and then you will face us." There was no arrogance in the statement. No pride. Just certainty. A biological empire demanded to know why humanity had the right to do this. The human answered with a single image. Earth. Not burning. Not collapsing. Alive. Oceans blue. Cities lit. A world that no longer existed. "We did not choose to govern the galaxy," the human said. "You chose to force us to adapt to it." Silence followed. For the first time, the galaxy understood the shape of human anger. It was not loud. It was architectural. Negotiations lasted days. They were not about surrender or dominance. They were about permission. about whether humanity would allow these constraints to remain permanent, or whether they could be adjusted, negotiated, softened. Humanity listened. Humanity is compromised, but it did not remove them. The final agreement was never written as a treaty. It was recorded as a precedent. Extinction without unanimous galactic consent was no longer acceptable. Preemptive eradication doctrines were quietly retired. Some empires resisted. They tested boundaries. In one distant region, a minor power attempted a silent genocide on a pre-FTL species, hoping to avoid attention. Hyperspace collapsed around their fleet. No explosion, no destruction. They were stranded for decades. Rescue came only after reparations were paid and the targeted species placed under protection. The message was clear. Humanity was not watching everything, but it was enough. The 17 survivor ships observed these changes from afar. Their crews felt something close to disbelief. The galaxy was changing course, not because it feared human fleets, but because it feared repeating Earth. As decades passed, new generations grew up knowing a different rule of the stars. You could fight, you could compete, you could even conquer, but you could not erase a species without consequence that would follow you forever. Humanity did not expand rapidly. It did not flood the galaxy with colonies. It chose locations carefully, often in regions no one else wanted, unstable systems, dead stars, edges of mapped space. From there, it anchored reality. Human culture changed as well. Earth became a myth, not as a paradise lost, but as a line crossed. Memorials were built in orbit around nothing, marking where the planet had been. Humans did not call it a tragedy. They called it the price of isolation, and they never allowed themselves to be isolated again. In the final session of the summit, an ancient delegate asked a question that had lingered unspoken. What happens if we forget this lesson? The human representative paused. For the first time, emotion crept into their voice, not anger, but something heavier. Then we will remind you, they said, and we will not be gentle. That was the end of the meeting. No applause, no closing ceremony, just understanding. The galaxy had blinked, not because humanity demanded obedience, but because humanity had demonstrated what survival looked like when nothing was left to lose. Long after the summit ended, trade resumed. Borders stabilized. Conflicts continued, but carefully. And in the deep, quiet places between stars, human systems continued their work, unseen and uncelebrated it. They did not enforce peace. They enforced memory. Because humanity had learned something the galaxy never had. That extinction was not the worst outcome. The worst outcome was teaching the wrong lesson. And Earth had taught humanity exactly the lesson it needed to make sure no one else would ever have to become a weapon just to be heard. One part remained. One story is still unfinished. Because legends do not end with balance. They end with remembrance. And the galaxy was about to learn why only 17 ships were ever allowed to escape. Long after the fires faded and the debris cooled, the galaxy tried to forget. That was its nature. Civilizations remembered victories. They recorded conquests. They archived wars in clean timelines with clear causes and tidy endings. What they did not like to remember were mistakes that changed the rules forever. Earth was one of those mistakes. Official records called it the Sol Incident. Some databases labeled it anomalous planetary collapse. Military archives reduced it to simulations and probabilities, stripped of faces and voices. But among spacers, pilots, and old commanders, it had another name. The day the galaxy survived by accident. Because everyone knew the truth. If more than 17 ships had escaped, the galaxy might not have learned fast enough. The 17 became something strange over time. They were not heroes. They were not celebrated. They were not even trusted. They were witnesses. Each of the surviving ships was different. Different species, different ranks, different doctrines. What bound them together was not loyalty, but memory. They had seen Earth die up close. They had seen a species choose meaning over survival. And they had lived. That survival haunted them. Some of the ships were eventually dismantled, their hulls too damaged to continue. Others were preserved in deep space vaults, sealed and guarded, not as trophies, but as warnings. A few continued to drift, their crews refusing to settle, unable to exist on planets that still felt safe. Every few decades, one of the 17 would break silence. Not with speeches, with stories. A captain would speak to cadets at a remote academy. An engineer would quietly correct a historian. A medic would wake screaming and finally explain why. And slowly, the legend spread. Not as a myth, as a procedure. New doctrines emerged across the galaxy, unspoken but universal. Never assume silence means weakness. Never corner a species with nothing left. Never force a civilization to decide whether its memory matters. Children on distant worlds grew up hearing simplified versions of the story. Not dates or ship counts, but the lesson. There was a world, they were told, that died so others would think twice. Some thought the story was exaggerated. Others dismissed it as human propaganda. Then they studied the data. The scar where Earth had been was still there. A region of space where physics behaved differently, where long-range sensors are distorted, where hyperspace refused to form stable lanes. No empire, no matter how advanced, had been able to undo it. Earth was gone, but its absence was permanent. Humans built a memorial there eventually. Not a planet, not a station, just a ring of light, small, quiet, and visible only if you knew where to look. It transmitted nothing except a simple timestamp, repeating endlessly. The moment Earth ceased to exist. No message, no accusation, just memory. Humanity never asked the galaxy to apologize. It never asked for reparations. It never asked for forgiveness. Because humanity did not believe forgiveness mattered. Only change did. Centuries passed. The galaxy grew older, slower, more careful. Wars still happened, but extermination became unthinkable. Even the most aggressive empires found subtler ways to dominate, because the cost of erasure was no longer abstract. It had a name. Earth. Humans spread, but not explosively. They became architects, engineers of systems no one else wanted to maintain. They took responsibility for unstable regions, broken stars, and dangerous corridors. Where reality needed reinforcement, humans appeared. Always calm, always methodical, always watching. They never ruled. They anchored. And whenever a new species reached the stars, someone, human or otherwise, would quietly pass along a story. Not a warning, a history. Once it would begin, the galaxy decided a species was a problem to be solved early. The story always ended the same way, with only 17 ships left to tell us why we were wrong. The 17 themselves faded, one by one. Crews aged. Species with shorter lifespans died off. Ships were finally laid to rest. The last surviving captain, old beyond reckoning, made one final journey. He traveled to the empty orbit where Earth had once been. He shut down his engines, and he recorded a final log. "We thought we were ending a threat," he said. "We thought we were cleaning the future. But the humans taught us something we never learned on our own." He paused for a long time. "They taught us that survival is not the same as victory." The log was sealed and archived, requiring reading for every galactic strategist thereafter. By then, the phrase had entered common speech across 1,000 languages. Remember the 17. It was spoken before wars, before risky decisions, before anyone tried to decide another species' fate. Because everyone knew what it meant. It did not mean humans would attack. It meant humans would end the argument. Not with fleets, not with fire, but by reshaping the conditions that made the argument possible at all. In the end, Earth became more than a lost planet. It became a boundary, a line the galaxy would never cross again. And humanity, once underestimated, once forgotten, once targeted for extinction, became something rare among the stars. Not conquerors, not rulers, but the species that proved one truth so completely that no one ever dared test it again. That when humanity was pushed to the edge of existence, it did not ask to survive. It made sure its death would matter. Only 17 ships escaped to tell that story. And because of them, the galaxy lived differently forever.